Hello, everybody. This is Rory Comiskey, and you're watching Igniting American Manufacturing. And I'm excited today. I have sitting next to me, I have Winn with Techb2b Marketing.
It's great to see you again, Rory.
It's great to see you again, Winn. So Winn and I have been spending a lot of time together lately talking. Winn actually has his own podcast, Manufacturing Matters.
Correct.
And you know what? Manufacturing does matter.
I completely agree.
And that's part of what we talk about here.
Absolutely.
But same premise, we have a lot in common, and we share that frequently. So tell me a little bit about Manufacturing Matters, the premise, and why you started it, Impetuous.
Absolutely, yeah. Manufacturing Matters, we've been taping for the last couple of years now, I think going on around year 2. Like the title implies, Manufacturing Matters deals with the technologies and the trends, as well as key personalities, regulation, and everything that's affecting the global manufacturing market. You know, I mean, the company, my company, Techb2b Marketing, who are the hosts of Manufacturing Matters, we pretty much work exclusively in industrial automation, power distribution industries, everything related to making manufacturing plants run, as well as the regulations and the engineering requirements and NRE and everything else that goes into it, which is your area of expertise, Rory, for sure. So I'm blessed enough on my team to have a lot of really great people. I've got, Jimmy Carroll, an expert in machine vision and robotics, John Lewis, who is a chemical engineer, big on motion control as well as advanced machine vision, again, and robotics. Been joined by Aaron Hand, who has been one of the leading moderators for a 46,000 strong LinkedIn group on semiconductor manufacturing for the last, I think, 10 to 15 years. Amanda Del Buono, who's an expert in control engineering systems, and so it's nice. It's not just always me on camera.
I'm hiring. I need a lot of technical advice. It sounds like you just gave me a list of people I probably should be on.
No, there will be no pilfering. There's no poaching of people.
You know what? So that was impressive.
Yeah.
Those people are rare.
Yeah.
And we could talk about why they're rare. That's part of what we talk about
Absolutely.
Here, workforce development and some shortages.
Yeah.
Tell me personally about your journey. So you're in the marketing business, but you're also in manufacturing. So do you have a manufacturing or tech background as well?
My technology background goes back, but I'm not an engineer like you are, all right? But let's see. So started programming computers actually on TRS-80s and original University of Michigan mainframes when I was in 8th grade. And where I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, a little town right outside there. And have always just been a real techie at core. Also wanted to be a writer. Those are the two things, and I was trying to find a way as a young man how to marry those things. Ended up going in traditional media, was in radio, newspapers, and then eventually went into trade publications because I could apply my writing skills, communication skills with that grasp of technology. And I started in optoelectronics. So a little publication up in Berkshire, Massachusetts called Photonic Spectra. I was the managing editor there for a number of years, which focused again on lasers, advanced imaging systems. It was huge during the Reagan SDI timeframe when we were talking about putting lasers up in space, as well as free space communications for lasers, all kinds of advanced tech. Eventually led to the optical communications revolution, Fibercom, and everything that's now the backbone.
So you've written and studied about the tech sector and manufacturing
for 30 years.
So you said something about an engineer.
Yeah.
There's folks who physically engineer, and there's degreed engineers, and I know a lot of really good self-taught folks that work in the sector and are really, really good.
Yeah.
So and we could talk about that. Are degrees necessary? I mean, do you need a licensed engineer to do certain things? Yes, but does everyone in your firm need to be a licensed engineer? No.
As a matter of fact, if you do, then you're really in trouble. Right, because when you talk about workforce development and labor gaps, I mean, the engineers are one of the biggest ones.
Engineer tech certification specialists. An INC person to me is an INC engineer at the end of the day, writing PLC, ladder logic, and things like that. But that doesn't require a degree. So in the tech sector, I love the name of your show.
Thank you.
Manufacturing Matters. It does. And, I write a lot, and I speak a lot, and I'm redundant and repeat myself, but I'm going to say it again. At no point in the world's history has manufacturing mattered as much as it does right now.
Completely agree. Around the world, but especially in the United States.
To your point, globally, And I quote Joseph Schumpeter, who's an Austrian economist, and he talks about waves of innovation or cycles of innovation.
Yeah.
And Mark Mills elaborates, on his book quite a bit, and says typically it takes 2 or 3 technical innovations to spur a new wave. Well, we're in a new wave right now, and Mark wrote a great book, The Cloud Revolution. Phenomenal book. Please grab it. But he, and he's a data center IT guy, so he's very centric in that, and I'm a little more centric on the semiconductor.
Yeah.
But we both came to the same conclusion. Right now, the global data sphere, semiconductor, and the EV ecosystem, right?
Right.
And you could throw in AI there. They're jet fuel to it. So you have three major, innovations, and it's forced this cycle.
Right.
And globally we can't keep up. And then there's, the issue about powering that. So manufacturing matters more so than it ever did. We're becoming more dependent on. People don't realize, you walk around your house, there's thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of products in your house that are manufactured somewhere. Some are tech-based, some are simple, some are just garments and textiles, some are electronics, but they all have to be manufactured somewhere. And our needs are just increasing exponentially. We just can't keep up. We simply can't keep up.
Needs keep growing, capacity lags.
Now you said a second ago, it's global. Yeah. But in the United States, exacerbated by reshoring.
Right, which was a natural reaction, really. I mean, especially, and the pandemic was the gasoline that helped to really fuel that. But I mean, there was already a recognition, I think, earlier than that you had to go to a distributed manufacturing model. I mean, if you're talking about sales and operations, you need production close to domestic markets. And it doesn't just allow you to reduce supply chain, reduce your footprint in terms of impact on the earth, but it also allows you to message and to understand those local customer bases better, so that for small tweaks to serve local markets. I mean, that's just super critical. And the days in the 80s and 90s when the U.S. was exporting so much of that manufacturing capacity overseas and moving towards the service industry, we woke up to the job losses, the needs in the U.S. And then when the pandemic came on, it just said, hey man, if you've got a global supply chain that is super complex, good luck with that when black swan events come. So all of this, I think, has contributed to, and I mean, just you think the wealth effect in terms of manufacturing, making goods that actually people can hold and need. It's completely different.
We're going to switch seats. You could do this. You could do this show. We're on the same page.
Yeah, well, we've been in it a long time, so you and I have a good, I think, a holistic view of it.
There was a group, I watched a seminar, 3 very intelligent people, 2 of them from Harvard, and talking about, tariffs and how they weren't good and things of that nature. And, one kind of said that, that offshoring was a good positive thing. And one of the ladies spoke up, and they made some valid points, had me thinking for a second, scratching my head.
Yeah.
And one lady said, tell that to people in Ohio. Tell that to the people in the Rust Belt.
Absolutely.
His premise was that middle class wasn't impacted. Well, there's proof. You can drive from, you go west of Albany, New York, and you get the Mohawk Valley.
Yeah.
And you follow the Erie Canal, and along that Erie Canal today, there's these beautiful old red brick buildings, and some of them are falling apart. Some of them are look okay, but they're all defunct factories.
Yeah. And
you can follow the Mohawk Valley into the Great Lakes and right down the Ohio River Valley. And that's where the growth of the United States came, in manufacturing. Once that Erie Canal was built, New York Harbor became this thing, and you could follow the history of manufacturing in the United States, through the Mohawk and down to Ohio.
Yeah.
Well,
same development we saw on the railroads back in the early days.
Reshoring, that was a vacuum, just sucking it backwards. So,
absolutely.
It's undeniable.
It is, and I've done 2 stints myself. I've lived in Nebraska twice in my life. So I mean, in the heartland, which is some of the greatest land, greatest people in the United States of America, without question. But you see so many small towns that are just suffering, from an exodus of young people looking for opportunity for growth. So I can't say there aren't words for me to say how excited I am to see manufacturing come back to the United States, and the opportunity, and again, the wealth effect. And you know, it doesn't just make individuals wealthy; it makes our country wealthy. And as much as I love traveling, I love Europe, but I love the United States more. So I'm super thrilled that we're coming to this awareness.
We're reshoring.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing. And you started off. A lot of people go right to, what happened, and I did. I gravitated right to the impact on the middle class. But you started talking about how it makes sense physically.
From a business operations.
From a business operations, to have things, in a hub where and close to it, and transportation. Yeah. And you actually mentioned just briefly, and I don't want to gloss over it. You mentioned it's good for the environment.
Yes.
When we talk about burning fuel, transportation, is one of the biggest costs of manufacturing. People don't realize that, transportation. So, it's really, really good. I think some of the government subsidies, there's a misnomer, and I say this all the time, sorry, shameless plug here, my book, American Manufacturing, hopefully, if I can,
finish those last couple chapters.
And finish a little bit. I keep.
Well, you're never home, so
I'm never
cut
home,
yourself a break.
And things are happening so rapidly in the sector.
Yeah.
That it keeps iterating and changing, and I keep rewriting a little bit. So I'm going to finish it, and it needs to. But the whole premise of the book is, it's what manufacturing made this country, great, and we're the number 2 manufacturer of the world right now. Mm-hmm. And maybe we might remain number 2. China population. Maybe we can catch them. Maybe we can't. I don't think the goal is to catch them.
No.
The goal is to bring enough manufacturing in here to reinvigorate our middle class.
Without question.
And lift up everybody in the economy at the same time. That's the goal. And the second thing is to get all these resources and supplies, close to home, so we're actually being a better neighbor, to our local communities and globally to the world.
Yeah.
We're not expending fuel that we don't. Need to, and the last part of that is, digital sovereignty, controlling our data, controlling our supply chain, that we're not beholden to, folks.
Could not agree more. And, there's a lot of layers to unpack there too. In your area of expertise, which is semiconductor, electric vehicle battery, or just EV battery production, you've rattled off half a dozen plants that are under construction or under consideration here in the U.S. The CHIPS Act is bringing back some of the first large fabs in states. It's going to take them a while to get online. You think about the concentration of chip manufacturing in Taiwan right now, and the whole issue with China, which is going to be a hot button item for a while. Lord knows what it's going to look like into the crystal ball to see what the future is there. But that ties into the fact that even though the U.S. hasn't always been the largest per unit manufacturer in the world because of 4 billion Chinese, the equipment to manufacture that traditionally has come from us. It's come from the United States. It's come from Germany primarily. China's come a very long way in terms of adoption of technology and has come up that scale. But we need to be the head at the discussion. If we're the ones developing the most advanced and the coolest technology for manufacturing, we'll still always be a linchpin in that space. We will benefit from it. But it's great to start seeing us eat more of our cooking now and be able to start building some of these plants in the U.S., this type of equipment again, which is helping to secure our country in a global, in a rather chaotic, chaos is not always bad. As you mentioned, the rate of change around the world is going so fast. Change causes dislocations in any system, right? Doesn't mean they're bad. Sometimes you're going to advance to much better systems. And you mentioned the cloud, and we've only barely touched on AI, which is a horizontal technology, which is, again, adding fuel to the development of all the chip manufacturing, all these advanced systems manufacturing.
And I say fuel,
yeah.
And I talked about semiconductor, EV, and chips.
Yeah.
And they are exacerbated by AI, but they all feed off each other.
They do.
The more cars, so. I was just reading, in 1979, the Porsche 911 had 8 computer chips in it.
Personal favorite.
8 computer chips in it. Sorry, I can't count it. 8 computer chips in it. Mm-hmm. Today it has 7,000 to 8,000 chips in it.
Yeah. 7,000
to 8,000 chips in a 911. So, an EV, those cars, use a ton as well, and they're actually using a slightly different, maybe an older technology, but they're using a different substrate. They're using silicon carbide, which is a nanosect. That's an old technology that's coming back. You know, that's growing. Wolfspeed, is doing some stuff in the Carolinas and just built a plant.
Yeah, traditionally been a hard material to work in, to keep high yields, been more expensive, but super critical in terms of.
I actually got to work in the Wolfspeed facility in the Mohawk Valley, and that's why my reference to the Mohawk Valley, that was very recent. So, those three, and the AI is just, it just fuel. We really need to get going on data centers.
Definitely.
We need to go in data centers,
that trend's not going away.
No, it's not.
For sure.
Well, I don't know if you know this. When you do a Google search, it uses so much data.
Mm-hmm.
When you do the same search on ChatGPT or AI, it's much more powerful. It's a deeper search.
Yeah.
It uses 10x the space in that data center and 10x the power. So
not surprised at all.
We have some issues, which brings us. We have many issues. As manufacturing grows, we have some, we have some constraints. Manufacturers racing back globally. It's exploding, but it's racing back to the United States. And our biggest constraint always brings me back to a subject, and it's a subject I know is dear to your heart: workforce development.
Yes.
So
yes,
this is pretty much a subject you cover in Manufacturing Matters quite a bit.
It is, absolutely. Well, I mean, we always have a big focus on automation. That's always been part of our DNA for the last 28 years at this point. I'm just so glad to see the general populace starting to understand that the fallacy that machines take jobs, in almost every case, in any large system, is completely untrue. Because it's the companies that adopt technology and automation that have higher profits, that are able to hire more people. Inevitably, a company that leverages machinery and automation to help build better, higher quality products.
It's a knee-jerk reaction. It's fear-based.
It is.
And it's not a reality.
No. It's an easy thing to tell to people to give them someone to be afraid of.
30 years ago, people were kind of looking at my computers here and said, oh, that's going to take away a bunch of work.
Yeah.
Now it's created. As a matter of fact, it's employed me.
Exactly.
I will tell you the chip that's in here, I was part of building that factory. And I can say that with pretty much a lot of devices. I've been in a lot of chip factories.
Yeah.
But it hasn't, and
no, it's a force multiplier.
We're looking at, depending on who you ask, a $3.5 million to $4 million deficit in workforce by 2030.
Sure.
Which, is 6 years away.
BLS has said, I remember I was working with Universal Robotics when they were first becoming bigwigs in the cobot space. And for those who don't know, cobots are collaborative robots. They're like a regular robot, but they move at a slower speed with less force so that humans can work around them without getting their head knocked off, right? So when they first came in, we're getting busy, they said to us, let's do a paper, let's take some positions on the labor gap, workforce development. BLS was saying there were 20, on average, across all manufacturing environments, in over a 6-year period, there would be a 23% gap in between available employees and needed, and the demand from various companies.
That gap's grown by, I can tell you for a fact.
Yeah, and it's across everywhere. It's welding, it's forklifts. I mean, we're just not talking about people who are, polishing the robot and making sure that it's working or watching the line.
Semiconductor alone is predicting 186,000 person deficit in the same period of 2030. That's one industry.
Yeah, and now let's put that back into the U.S. market, right? If the U.S. can't,
I'm talking about straight 186,000 in the U.S. market.
Exactly, but we're talking about semiconductor growth is what has kept the United States, and our technology is what's kept us a leader in the world economy. So to ignore that is to literally slit your own throat.
So TSMC and Morris Chang, what he did. The foundry model was phenomenal. I wish he did it here.
For sure.
And we tried, it made sense.
Yeah.
And Intel was dominated everyone, and AMD, AMD was struggling to keep up. Infineons and some of those struggled to keep up, and the foundry model worked for them. And we were at 32% of the market. Now we're at 12%. And the goal is to get to 25. And the CHIP Act, I think, is going to get us there. I'm really excited about that.
It's going to take a few years.
But it's going to take, so a few years. a lot of people boo-hooing the CHIP Act and the IRA and saying we're not seeing results. And Pat Geisler, he's the CEO. I really love what he's doing at Intel.
Yeah.
Made a quote there a while ago. He says, "We can't undo 40 years of offshoring in a year and a half." And he said about problems with the CHIPS Act.
Right.
And he actually alluded to might need a CHIP Act too, and I'm in favor of that. People,
I can't think of anywhere better to invest.
Well, of course.
For the general economy.
Well, first of all, Intel's an American company.
Yes.
They're a leader, and
as is NVIDIA.
As is NVIDIA. Here's the thing about the American semiconductor industry, and we manufacture, we're shipping it off in foundries, and Intel builds here. Micron has actually held their own and built here.
Mm-hmm.
We are the #1 chip designer.
Yes.
And we are the #1 innovators. And here's the one thing that nobody does better than Americans. And for the past 100 years.
Does it start with the word I?
And it starts with innovate.
Yes.
Yes.
Couldn't agree
we
more.
are the innovators of the world.
Yep.
And that's our edge.
Yes.
And that's our edge coming back with semiconductor. What TSMC is making, they're making American designed chips from American firms.
Yes, Harley leveraging the lithography and the technologies that were built here in the robotics
Sure.
and the material handling.
Well, there's a Dutch company, ASML.
ASML.
Well, they're an amazing company, amazing story.
They are. Yep.
There's a book just came out on them. It's not out in English yet. Are great. I actually I got to install some of the first ASMLs when it first came out.
No kidding.
Yeah, not the EUV stuff. I mean, we're at their tools are incredible.
Yeah.
They've got kept Moore's law alive for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So workforce development.
Yeah.
And like I said, you and I can go all over the place talking about stuff. I want to bring it back a little bit.
Yes.
So you have folks on your show.
We do. We set a big set of these. I mean, workforce development. I mean, you jump in here on the Rory, but like we're going to IMTS in a couple of weeks, right up in Chicago.
I'm glad you mentioned IMTS.
Yep. So one of North America's largest manufacturing trade shows up there, runs all week, September 9th through the 13th. It's a beast.
World's largest.
Yeah, owns McCormick Place.
I won't be able to make it this time.
But there's a lot of great stuff going on there. I mean, our mutual friend Terry Iverson's going to be down there with his Champion program. We're meeting with AMT. We're also going to be shooting some shows with CEO of Siemens and some other big wigs that are women, basically. So we're going to shoot an episode down there that's won't be our first one, talking about growth of women in engineering, automation, manufacturing. Critical area.
Are you going to be interviewing from Siemens?
Christine, and don't ask me her last name because Amanda at the office is handling those communications, and Amanda's actually going to be hosting that episode, so please check in for Manufacturing Matters later when you guys want to see this. And we're going to have Julia from Rethink Robotics, which is being relaunched. We're helping them relaunch. They were one of the first, if you remember Baxter back in the day, it was one of the first cobots to come out, had eyes on him and all this other hoo-ha, but there's something special coming out from them pretty soon. So just not just the female part, and then you got Terry's part, which is Champion, the program bringing CNC machinery and equipment to students at middle schools and high schools. Keying off David Kamen's work for FIRST Robotics, which is bringing all the robotics technology across the world.
He talks about STEM.
Yes.
And parroting, and I'm going to get the acronym wrong, but Champion actually stands for change, and it has something to do with change how Americans think about manufacturing.
Absolutely.
I butchered the acronym for him, but
just focus on Champion. That's important.
Champion. And changing how people think about manufacturing in the United States.
Yeah.
And getting parents on board and looking at it as an option for children besides that 4-year traditional degree. He literally champions that. Champion now
Right.
does.
Yes.
As does I've had Amelia Goulding on here. Does a lot of stuff with workforce development stuff.
Yeah.
I think the big importance, shows like yours are so important that we're having that conversation. If we're going to reshore, and we have to, it's a necessity. And it's good on so many planes. It's good for world economy. It's good for the American economy. It's good for the middle class.
It's good for peace. It's good for the world. It's good for the environment. It's good for our economy. It's good for our self-defense. I mean, all of it.
Cybersecurity. There are folks who call it, corporate welfare. There's something to be said for that. We need to be careful with that. But if we're going to, we spend a lot of money on a lot of things in this country, and we help a lot of other countries.
Yes.
If we're going to spend some money on something,
Yeah.
creating jobs in this country good paying jobs for our middle class, elevate people. That, to me, that's probably where we need to be spending it. You mentioned IMTS. You have some dates on that?
Yeah, that's September 9th through the 13th. And before we move on to that, I want to touch really quick, just on the workforce development thing. When we talk about programs like Champion, First Robotics, and these other aspects, and then we talk about college. Right at the beginning you said that, we have a gap in engineers, but not everyone in the automation of the technology space needs to be an engineer. And that could not be more true. I mean, for families who are out there looking, all right, do I want to, put a $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 or even more in debt on my kids so they can go get in 4 years of school?
4 years,
right?
It could be,
and really not coming out of there. I mean, the programs have gotten better, but not a lot of real world experience necessarily, because academics depends on which school you go to. A lot of them are feeding into local industrial plants, so there's a lot of internship programs where these kids can get real world. But versus, say, a 2-year vocational program to learn how to do CAD or PLC programming or advanced electricians.
I need people with PLCs. Let's keep pumping that one.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. Yeah. PLCs are the brains that basically run manufacturing.
I actually had the pleasure, and I'm going to do some announcements on some events coming up here in a second. And I typically do it at the beginning of the show. 3 weeks in running, I actually got the privilege of saying this. It started, Intel announced a paid apprenticeship program for semiconductor techs.
Yes.
And they wind up with an associate's degree, and they get paid, and they go to school at night.
And then they make major bank when they come out. Let's not forget about that. Yeah, these people can afford to live in California.
They're 6-figure jobs.
Yeah.
And Phoenix and Oregon. I've worked with Intel all around the world.
Yeah.
Micron came out and they did it through National Apprenticeship Week. They named the same things. And then the week after that, Global Foundries. So 3 apprenticeship programs.
Yes.
So, I mean, to me, that was just, that just warms my heart. That is money well spent. And then, we spoke earlier, I've spoken earlier on different shows. Purdue has a semiconductor specific degree. They also have, we're calling micro certifications and nano degrees.
Yes.
And the University of Texas is doing things those lines. Several universities have come across with that.
Yeah.
So, getting, a degree in semiconductor engineering, great. But a micro certification, if you can get you on the job and paid and get going.
Yeah.
And there's some people who just can't afford to go to school, or it's just really not an option for a variety of reasons. And those apprenticeships.
A lot of people don't want to be committed to 4 or 5 years either. I mean, before they can get out in the workforce, start making their families and their jobs.
Dig a hole for $100,000, maybe.
Yeah.
While you're not earning money, or get paid to go to school a couple of hours, in the evening, and work during and actually make money in that 4 years. So. When you get that, how much ROI is there? Do you have to, off that degree?
Plus, be basically in a recession future-proof industry, because demand in semiconductors and other high tech, it's not going away. It's an enabler for so many other industries. That was one of the reasons 30 years ago, when I founded Techb2b Marketing, that was what was on my mind, because I was a writer. I was like, well, how do I write? How do I get into my space and help the community? But in such a way that'll protect me, my family, my employees, So.
Well, I'm going to segue in here, and I had some announcements I probably should have in the beginning, but
Do
I'll
it.
do it now.
Do it.
Battery Career Fair,
Yep.
The world's largest online career fair for the battery industry, September 12th from 8 a.m. To 10 a.m. online. And that's put on by the Volta Foundation, and has some big name participants in Lucid and Ascend, and a lot of folks in the industry. So again, September 12th, that's from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. It's online, the Battery Career Fair by the Volta Foundation. Just Google it, and we're going to throw up a link to that in a second.
Is that one of your Norway trips? But you can visit online? You can
No, that's
online?
actually in upstate New York.
Okay.
The folks put in upstate New York.
Okay.
And I actually was at the Battery Show in Stuttgart, but Battery Show North America is in Detroit, and that's coming up.
Yep.
And that is going to be October 7th and 10th in Detroit, Michigan. And let's see. There's a
Good
couple
place to
more
go
here.
see a show.
Okay, this one is Berlin. The Future Battery Forum is going to be in Berlin. And that'll be November 5th and 6th.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's one, this guy, December 4th and 5th, I talked about this, Gigafactory, the Future of Battery Manufacturing. I will be chairing that in Berlin, and
Of course
I
you are.
also will be presenting the Smart Manufacturing Initiative. And just this Thursday, I'll be speaking at 8:30 locally here in Jacksonville at the Jacksonville Manufacturing Association, and I will be talking a little bit about smart manufacturing, but AI as it relates to smart manufacturing.
Yeah.
So I'll be presenting that, and I'm looking forward to doing something locally for a change.
Yeah, we're looking forward to you building some momentum of that here in the Jacksonville area, because Jacksonville has a lot of, we got a lot of land, we got a lot of talent, a lot of ex-military, great workforce that should be leveraged for that kind of growth.
Well, that's a song I've been singing for a while.
Yeah,
And we're going to close here in a second. That is definitely a song. Jacksonville is a great town.
it is.
And I've been on site selections for some major players in the battery sector, a little bit in the semiconductor.
Yeah.
And funny, I actually presented, I got an EV MBA from Battery Associates, a year ago, and my project, and I presented, site selection. And I've been involved in it and all that, but it actually gave me some clarity, and I actually, kind of worked on it a little bit more. And when I look at Jacksonville and I look at all the boxes, for a major battery factory or semiconductor facility, Jacksonville ticks quite a few of them.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I agree.
a matter of fact, it ticks almost all of them. So Jacksonville, let's bring a major manufacturing facility here. Would love to have
Good
that
land, good
conversation.
tax, good regulatory,
Yeah.
good workforce, untapped potential.
There's a lot of Navy people that this is the
Exactly.
last duty station that retire here.
Yep.
And we talk, and I'm gonna wrap up here in a second.
Yeah.
We talk quite a bit about upskilling. Well, if you're in the Navy nuke fleet, there's not a whole lot of upskilling. We need the Navy has a vernacular with a bunch of acronyms in it, and so does semiconductor and EV sector. Get someone a dictionary and align those acronyms. I can tell you, if you can go on a Navy nuke and commission it and recommission and commission it and get on there, when we talked about PLCs and
Yeah.
work on the instrumentation and controls,
Yep.
and write ladder logic there.
Right.
There's no reason I can't put you in a factory, teach you a little bit of vernacular, and have you
Absolutely.
up and running in weeks. There's not a whole lot of upskilling at all. So we have a really good available workforce.
Yeah.
The other part of it, we got a good climate. We got a port. We got 95 and 10. So we got two major,
Not just a port, but a deep water port.
deep water port. Yes, we do. So there's a lot going on here. It's just a great place too.
Yeah, it is.
It's a great place.
Yeah.
Well, Winn, we could probably sit here for hours.
I know we could. Absolutely. Another cup of coffee.
Back and we're going to pick something else to ramble about. And, it's not really an interview with you. It's kind of a conversation, and I enjoy that.
Cool.
So we'll have you back soon.
I
Thank
look
you
forward to
so much for coming.
Thanks for having me on again, Rory.
Thank you.
All right.
Cut. How long was that?